Automobiles have long been a symbol of American ingenuity, power, and freedom. From the roaring engines of the muscle cars to the sleek curves of modern electric vehicles, the auto industry has given us some of the most iconic machines in history. But not every car to roll off the production line has been a success. Some have been outright disasters. Today we're diving deep into the darkest corners of the automotive world to uncover the 5 dumbest of the worst cars ever made in America. These aren't just bad cars, they're icons of failure. So buckle up because this is going to be a bumpy ride. Before we start, we would like to ask you to subscribe to our channel. You would motivate us to continue producing exciting content. Thanks a million. Let's get started. Let's start with a car that's become a legend. For all the wrong reasons. The Pontiac Aztek. Released in 2001, the Aztek was Pontiac's attempt at something innovative. But instead of innovation, what we got was a mess. The Aztek's design was a mishmash of conflicting ideas. Was it an SUV? Was it a minivan? Was it a toaster? No one really knew. The front end looked like it was designed by 3 different teams who never spoke to each other. The rear? It's as if they just gave up and chopped it off. The result was a car that looked, well, like nothing else on the road, and not in a good way. Pontiac tried to market the Aztek as the ultimate vehicle for outdoor enthusiasts. It came with all sorts of gimmicky accessories like a built-in tent and a center console that doubled as a cooler. But no amount of clever marketing could save this monstrosity. Consumers were confused and sales were abysmal. Despite being a commercial flop, the Aztek has managed to live on in infamy. And let's not forget its resurgence in popular culture, thanks to Breaking Bad, where it perfectly represented the broken-down life of Walter White. So what went wrong? The Aztek wasn't just ugly. It was a symbol of GM's struggle to find its identity in a rapidly changing market. It was a car that tried to be everything for everyone and ended up being nothing for no one. Next up, we have a car that's often cited as one of the worst ever sold in America, the Yugo GV. Imported from Yugoslavia in the mid-1980s, the Yugo was marketed as the cheapest new car you could buy. And well, it showed. The Yugo GV was as basic as they come. It was small, underpowered, and built with parts that felt like they were left over from other cars. The fit and finish were atrocious. Doors didn't close properly, the interior was cramped and uncomfortable, and the engine? Let's just say it had all the power of a lawnmower. A very old lawnmower. But the real kicker? The Yugo was notoriously unreliable. It became the punchline of countless jokes. The car was so bad that it became a sort of cultural icon for cheapness and poor quality. Mechanics would tell Yugo owners to keep the engine running when they stopped at a red light because there was no guarantee it would start again. And safety? Forget about it. The Yugo was about as safe as a cardboard box on wheels. In crash tests, it performed abysmally, and its poor build quality only made things worse. In the end, the Yugo GV didn't just fail, it spectacularly crashed and burned. And it serves as a reminder that sometimes, you really do get what you pay for. Now, let's talk about a car that became infamous not for how it looked, but for what it did, or rather, what happened to it when things went wrong. The Ford Pinto. The Pinto. Released in 1971, it was Ford's answer to the small, fuel-efficient cars coming out of Europe and Japan. On the surface, it seemed like a decent little car. But lurking beneath its unassuming exterior was a deadly flaw. You see, the Ford Pinto had a fatal design flaw. The fuel tank was positioned in such a way that, in a rear-end collision, it could easily rupture and catch fire. And catch fire it did. There were numerous reports of Pintos bursting into flames after being hit from behind, resulting in tragic deaths and injuries. The real scandal, though, was Ford's response. Instead of fixing the problem, they decided it would be cheaper to pay off lawsuits than to recall and repair the cars. That decision became a public relations disaster and a dark chapter in automotive history. The Pinto debacle raised serious questions about corporate ethics and consumer safety. In the end, the Pinto became synonymous with corporate greed and callousness. And it stands as a stark reminder of the importance of safety in automotive design. The Chevrolet Vega. A car that, like the Pinto, started with good intentions but quickly went off the rails. Launched in 1971, the Vega was GM's big hope to compete with the rising tide of small, efficient cars from Japan. It had sleek lines, a modern design, and an aluminum engine block that was supposed to revolutionize the industry. But as we all know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The Vega was plagued with problems from the start. The aluminum engine block was prone to overheating and warping, leading to serious reliability issues. But the real disaster? Rust. The Vega rusted like it was its job. Within just a couple of years, many Vegas were already showing severe rust damage, even in places that hadn't seen much moisture. This wasn't just a minor issue. The rust was so bad that it would eat away at critical structural components. And let's not forget the oil consumption. Vegas were known to burn oil at an alarming rate, leading to smoky exhausts and frequent trips to the mechanic. The Vega was supposed to be GM's answer to the imports, but it ended up being an embarrassing failure. It damaged GM's reputation and left a lasting stain on the American compact car market. The Vega's downfall was so complete that it's now remembered more for its failures than anything else. And finally, we come to the AMC Gremlin. A car so strange it's hard to believe it was ever taken seriously. Released in 1970, the Gremlin was AMC's attempt to create a subcompact car on a budget. And when I say on a budget, I mean it. The design process essentially involved taking an AMC Hornet, cutting off the back end, and calling it a day. The result was a car that looked like it had been chopped in half. The front was all business, but the rear? Well, the rear was just sort of abruptly cut off. It was as if the designers ran out of time, or maybe they just ran out of metal. But despite its weird looks, the Gremlin did have a certain charm. It was cheap, it was small, and it was different. Unfortunately, being different wasn't enough to overcome its flaws. The Gremlin had a rough ride, poor handling, and was generally uncomfortable to drive. The interior was cramped, and the build quality was, let's just say, not great. And then there was the engine. The base model came with a straight six that was loud, unrefined, and not particularly fuel efficient, which kind of defeated the purpose of a small car. The Gremlin did manage to sell relatively well, but it was never taken seriously by automotive enthusiasts. It became more of a novelty than a serious contender in the subcompact market. Today, it's often remembered as a quirky footnote in automotive history, a car that was born out of necessity but never really had a chance to shine. So, there you have it, the 5 dumbest of the worst cars ever made in America. These cars weren't just bad, they were downright disasters. They're remembered not for their innovations or their impact on the industry, but for their failures and the lessons they taught us. In the world of automobiles, not every idea is a good one, and not every car deserves a place in the history books. But for better or worse, these 5 cars have earned their place as icons of failure, and they serve as reminders of what happens when things go terribly wrong in the world of car design. If you enjoyed this journey through automotive infamy, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Have you ever owned one of these disasters, or do you know of another car that deserves a spot on this list? We'd love to hear your stories. Until next time, keep driving, but maybe not in one of these.